Have you ever wondered why so many men celebrate what slowly destroys them? Have you ever noticed why we need noise to escape from silence? Or why society applauds pleasure even when it tastes like surrender? Every man who yields to a vice becomes its servant. Carl Jung wrote that the mind often forges its own chains while pretending to be free. Voluntary intoxication is simply the choice to give up the inner voice that seeks clarity. The greater the vice, the more beautiful the lie that sustains it. Jung understood the power games of the psyche better than any strategist. We live in a world where raising a glass is treated as normal, where intoxication is sold as something deserved, where numbness is confused with rest. But behind that cultural veneer, there is a silent pact, a collective agreement of weakening, and you, without noticing, may already be part of it. This message is not about moral judgment. It is about power, about self-dominion, about what Jung would call the art of not being governed, neither by others nor by the shadows you refuse to confront. Feel comfortable, but stay alert. You are about to cross a threshold between what appears to be pleasure and what is, in truth, surrender. Have you noticed how people speak of drinking as if it were a reward, as if that glass at the end of the day were a trophy for surviving routine, pressure, exhaustion? You deserve it, they say. But no one tells you that with that drink comes a subtle exchange, almost invisible. You hand over your most awake state and receive dullness in return. That is where the game begins. It is not alcohol that destroys you. It is what it teaches you. Slowly, you stop associating rest with peace and begin to associate it with numbness. You get used to running, to not feeling, to silencing your own consciousness. And do you know what is most cruel? It all comes wrapped as freedom. I drink because I want to, because I like it. But the question we never ask is, can you stop? Because the true sign of freedom is being able to say no, even when the world screams yes. Jung never needed to write about drinking to foresee this scenario. He already knew that the man who gives in to his impulses without reflection becomes predictable, and predictability in a world driven by hidden motives is weakness. It is like walking unarmed among predators while smiling. Look around. How many times have you seen someone intelligent, creative, strong, lose himself inside his own glass? Alcohol steals nothing by force. It seduces. It whispers that you will feel lighter, freer, more yourself. But the truth is that it takes away your best part, the part that can carry the weight of reality with its head held high. And when you finally notice, you have created a ritual. Every Friday, every event, every escape. It is no longer a habit, it is identity. You no longer say, I drink. You say, I am like this. And at that point, the poison becomes more effective, because it no longer needs to convince you of anything. You already did that work for it. You have also noticed how conversations change when everyone is drunk. What was deep becomes mockery. What was connection becomes noise. You laugh, but deep down, you know that the laughter is not yours. It belongs to the mask you wear when you do not want to face silence. Because silence, my friend, reveals, and most people are not prepared to face what silence shows. So they drink, to quiet themselves, to forget, to avoid thinking. But here is the secret. No one says out loud. Real power belongs to the one who can face himself sober, feel everything, refuse to run, and still remain standing. That man is rare, that man is dangerous, and he is exactly the kind of man the system fears. Now tell me something. Have you ever felt stuck? Even when you try to change, have you noticed that no matter how many books you read, how many videos you watch, or how much effort you make, something invisible keeps dragging you back to the same patterns? It is not a coincidence, and it has an explanation. Recently, researchers and scholars rediscovered a model of mental transformation used for centuries by philosophers, strategists, and thinkers who altered the course of history. A silent but incredibly effective method that combines science, psychology, and ancient wisdom, and one that only a very small number of people know today. Those who practice it describe a genuine inner transformation, a sharpening of perception, a discipline that feels almost unfamiliar at first, and a stronger identity, as if for the first time they finally had real authority over their own mind. Carl Jung would say that such moments mark the beginning of true individuation, the instant when the self stops fragmenting and begins to stand upright. Imagine an empire at its peak. The walls are impenetrable. The army is unstoppable. The people respect and fear their ruler. Now picture that same ruler alone with a single cup. The wine is red like blood and appears harmless, almost romantic. A toast to peace. A toast to conquest. A toast to downfall. Because this is how empires collapse, not under the sword, but under the subtle effect of forgetting oneself. Jung would have understood this perfectly. He knew that the fall of any inner king begins when comfort is mistaken for security, when a person believes they can relax indefinitely, and that their inner throne will hold even if they crumble within. Alcohol in this symbolic drama becomes the perfect infiltrator. It enters as celebration, but acts as sabotage. Perhaps you think I exaggerate, but tell me, how many decisions have you seen made under the influence of alcohol that the next day seemed absurd? How many secrets were exposed by a miscalculated drink? How many powerful men, fathers, leaders, guides, stumbled not because someone attacked them, but because they slipped on their own concessions? Alcohol does not forgive. It watches and charges interest. The person who drinks believing they are celebrating life is often signing their surrender. The cup they raise is not an homage to victory, but a sign that they have allowed themselves to relax too much. And someone excessively relaxed becomes someone easy to influence. Throughout history, tyrants knew this. They did not need prisons when they had taverns. A drunk people does not protest. A numbed people does not realize it is being dominated. They dance, laugh, toast. They believe they are living intensely when, in reality, they are being anesthetized sip by sip. And it is not only the body that weakens with alcohol, but awareness, instinct, inner vigilance. The cup steals from you the most valuable thing you possess: clarity. Clarity is not merely lucidity. It is the ability to feel the atmosphere of a room, to sense when someone is lying, to detect betrayal before it happens. It is the sixth sense every strategist must cultivate, and alcohol dissolves it effortlessly. Have you noticed how drinking turns the brave into reckless and the wise into talkers? Have you seen how the drunk man believes he is more sincere when in truth he is merely unfiltered, convinced he is free while he is simply exposed? An exposure in any battlefield, whether in the world or in your personal life, is an open invitation to attack. What is most painful is that while you relax, others observe. While you speak too much, someone is taking notes. While you laugh loudly, someone realizes you no longer represent a threat. Respect fades, and no one says anything. Everyone keeps smiling, but inside, they no longer fear you. And in a world like ours, where everything depends on perception, losing that edge is the beginning of the end. Look at the great strategists of history: Alexander, Napoleon, Caesar. Jung would say they all shared the same principle. Control begins within. A person who cannot govern their impulses will never govern an empire, and someone who depends on a drink to relax governs nothing at all. They become subject to mood, to night, to the next dose. The empire does not fall suddenly, it collapses in stages. First comes slight laziness, then delays. The mind becomes less sharp. Intuition falters. Ambition weakens. And what once was a fortress of discipline turns into a castle of sand. But do you know what is most perverse about all this? Alcohol carries out its work while making you laugh, while whispering that everything is fine, while everyone around you insists it is normal, that it is simply part of life. Yet the truth is that every toast is a miniature surrender of your dreams, your clarity, and your inner empire. Do not deceive yourself. The world does not want you clear-minded, because a clear-minded man is difficult to manipulate. He sees too much, feels too deeply, decides with precision, refuses distraction, refuses surrender, refuses to dissolve into the collective fog. And such a man is dangerous. That is why the system offers you comfort, entertainment, escape, because it knows that unconscious men are easier to govern than men awakened by inner vision. In the psychology of Carl Jung, anything that numbs the inner world weakens the ability to see the truth beneath appearances. Alcohol becomes the disguise of decline, and decline often begins with a toast. At first, no one notices. It is subtle. Waking a little more tired, the mind slightly slower, enthusiasm thinner. Life continues, but with less brightness. And the cruelest part is that you do not even feel the loss. You simply adapt, living farther from your true self while believing nothing has changed. That is what alcohol does. It does not steal all at once. It charges interest in tiny installments. Each drink, each just for today, each I only need to relax, comes with costs that accumulate silently. And you begin paying those costs only after years of inner debt. You will never see a sign saying, "Attention, your decay begins here." What you will see is a mirror slowly revealing a different face, a duller gaze, a weaker posture, a presence less sharpened by consciousness. Jung often warned that the greatest dangers are those that grow in silence, shaping the personality without resistance. You start losing time, and time is merciless. It does not forgive distractions. While you recover from the last night, someone else is building. While you anesthetize your anguish, someone else is training. While you run from pain, someone else is learning to dance with it and returning stronger. The price of drinking is never on the bar receipt. The price is paid in who you fail to become. You stop writing that project, finishing that book, having that difficult conversation that could change everything. You postpone, justify, procrastinate. And what you call enjoying life is often fear wearing a costume, fear of feeling everything truthfully, fear of the inner void, fear of facing yourself without filters. Jung taught that what you avoid eventually becomes your destiny. Every escape strengthens the chains. The drink becomes a ritual, a socially accepted hiding place. And worse, you begin believing you need it. You need it to socialize, to relax, to forget. But what if the real power lies in remembering? Remembering who you were before escape became routine, before courage was replaced with artificial euphoria, before silence became something to endure instead of a sacred space. where the self speaks. Silence, though uncomfortable, is the bridge to truth. Alcohol cuts that bridge and leaves you walking in circles, calling it fun. But deep inside, something in you knows. It knows the thrill of last night built nothing. It knows that relaxation cost discipline. It knows that disconnection stole your presence. The price is paid in your energy, your clarity, your ambition, which fades quietly like a flame, turning to smoke. And the most painful part is this: you do not notice when you lose control. You only notice when you try to stop and cannot. When drinking stops being a choice and becomes a need. When a sober night feels terrifying. And here lives the truth no one says. Alcohol does not remove pain. It only postpones it. But postponed pain returns heavier, darker, more confusing. It returns as regret, chronic exhaustion, a hollow feeling no toast can fill. You remember what you could have been, what you delayed, what you left for someday, and someday never returns. The drink reveals its cost when you try to recover your strength and it is no longer there, when you search for motivation and find fog, when you want focus and receive anxiety instead. But here is the good news. You can stop paying this price with a single no, with the decision to look at yourself and whisper enough. That whisper marks the beginning of reconstruction, because even if you have lost time, time has not lost you. And the clarity that waits on the other side of sobriety is incomparable. In Jung's view, reclaiming consciousness restores the forgotten path of the self and renews inner strength and purpose. It feels like opening your eyes after years of wandering through a dream. Your mind becomes yours again. Your body finally obeys you, and the world, that same blurry world that once felt distant, begins to take shape. But such clarity only appears when you stop numbing what you feel, when you choose real pain instead of false relief, when you stop running and finally turn to face yourself. Carl Jung insisted that awakening begins the moment you refuse to hide from your inner landscape, especially from the parts you hoped no one would ever see. And the drink will still be there calling you, promising celebration, promising escape, promising warmth. But now you know what waits after the toast. You know the cost. And for the first time, you can decide not to pay it again. Sobriety terrifies many people, not because of physical abstinence, but because without alcohol, without noise, without distractions, you are left with only yourself. Your mind, your thoughts, your fears, your contradictions, your shadow. Jung always said that the shadow follows you everywhere, and sobriety is the moment you finally turn around and meet it. And that, for most people, feels unbearable. Modern culture worships noise. There is always something playing, talking, flashing, demanding attention. Silence is treated almost like a threat, but in silence, you finally hear what matters. You begin to notice where you truly stand, and above all, who you have actually become. The sober man, when he remains sober long enough, discovers something unsettling. Behind many of his habits lived fear. Fear of feeling, fear of remembering, fear of choosing, fear of being. In Jung's language, fear is the gatekeeper to the self. The drink was never just entertainment. It was a socially accepted, culturally applauded escape mechanism. But when he decides to break that cycle, he doesn't do it only for health. He does it for command. He understands that to master anything in the external world, he must first master the universe within. Jung wrote that no one can influence outer reality without first confronting the storms inside their own psyche. And that process begins with a choice, stopping the escape. In silence, everything returns. The past, the mistakes, the broken promises, the wasted opportunities, the buried memories that never died. And that is not weakness. It is raw material for transformation. Jung taught that no one becomes strong by avoiding suffering. Strength emerges by integrating it consciously. True strengthening happens in confrontation. It shows itself in the decision to remain sober when everything around you suggests the opposite. It appears at the dinner table where everyone raises their glasses and you calmly say, "No, thank you." It appears on those difficult nights when you choose to write, to train, to reflect instead of drinking. These choices seem small, but they accumulate. They build a different presence, a form of strength that doesn't need explanation. People notice it, people feel it, and many become uncomfortable. Sobriety makes others uneasy because it exposes things. It exposes the emptiness of those who depend on the glass to relax. It exposes the fragility of those who only enjoy themselves when they are intoxicated. It exposes the superficiality of relationships that exist only between drinks. A sober man, standing firm in the middle of chaos, is not only resisting temptation, he is telling the world, "I do not need numbness to exist. I do not require distraction to endure life. I am capable of facing it fully." Jung would call that man someone who has begun to individuate, someone who no longer hides from his own consciousness. And such a man is rare, not because few have the capacity, but because few have the willingness. Most people prefer quick relief over gradual construction, immediate pleasure over actual victory. But those who choose the path of true sobriety discover that there is power in discomfort, clarity in pain, growth in tension. That is the unbreakable man, not because nothing affects him, but because he learned to transform impact into strength. And no glass delivers that. Drinking was never about flavor or ritual. It was always about what one tries to avoid. Alcohol, though sold as celebration, often functions as a mask for exhaustion, disconnection, emptiness, or the constant feeling of not belonging that so many carry. But the truth, as harsh as it sounds, is simple. No one builds an empire while numb. No great work has ever been born from a fogged mind. No leader has remained at the top while making the bottle his advisor. Carl Jung would insist that real power belongs to those who govern themselves, those who refuse to surrender to what weakens them, those who understand that real freedom is not doing everything one wants, but having mastery over what one chooses. Sobriety, in that context, is not deprivation, it is privilege. It is what allows clarity, focus, discipline. It is what separates the ordinary man from the man who leads. Because in the end, destiny is not defined by grand moments, but by small decisions. And between the glass and control, there will always be a choice. I felt the need to write this script because many years ago, I witnessed someone I loved slowly dissolving in this exact way. It did not happen in a dramatic collapse, nor in a moment that demanded attention. It unfolded quietly, almost politely, the way a light dims so gradually that you do not realize the room has grown dark until you can no longer see your own hands. It began with a single moment meant for rest, a harmless pause at the end of a long day. And because it felt comforting, it returned the next day, and then the day after that. What was once a moment became a habit. What was once a habit became a justification. And by the time I finally understood what was happening. The person who used to radiate clarity, strength, and direction had already slipped into someone unrecognizable. The most painful part was watching them insist that everything was fine. They believed they still had control, even when control had quietly walked out the door. I carry that memory like a warning carved into my mind. Decline never announces its arrival. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It does not break down the door. It simply walks in, disguised as routine, as comfort, as celebration, as something familiar. And because of that disguise, we rarely notice the transformation until something inside us has already dimmed. If this message reached you at this exact moment of your life, understand this. It is not random. Maybe your mind is tired of ignoring what your intuition has been whispering. Maybe the universe pushed this video in front of you because you needed to hear these words today. Or perhaps someone you care about deeply is drifting the same way, and you were meant to become the light that pulls them back. Thank you for staying here until this moment. Thank you for listening with honesty, without running from the discomfort that these words might cause. Not everyone has the courage to confront themselves without turning away. As Carl Jung taught, the one who looks outside dreams, but the one who looks inside awakens. And the fact that you reach this point means something inside you is stirring. It may be the beginning of an awakening, or perhaps the awakening has already begun, and you simply needed confirmation. If that is true for you, then do something simple but powerful. Comment below, "I choose clarity." Those 3 words are not decoration. They reflect a decision. They reveal who is ready to stop escaping, who is ready to stop numbing themselves, who is finally ready to build instead of hide. And if this video made you think, imagine what is coming next. Imagine what will unfold when you allow yourself to see what you have ignored for so long. Do not try to predict it. Curiosity is enough. Just click. But remember this, what comes next is not for those who hide behind convenient excuses or empty affirmations. It is for those who are ready to face their reflection without filters, without stories, without masks. It is for those who have suffered enough from avoiding themselves. Before you leave, complete the small ritual that demands almost nothing but represents everything. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. If you came this far, show consistency. Keep the door open for what is trying to reach you. Sometimes, between one notification and the next, you finally see what you had been denying, what you tried to bury at the bottom of a familiar habit or at the bottom of the glass. You are not walking through this process alone anymore. I am here with you, and so are many others who, just like you, decided that clarity was more important than escape. Have you ever wondered why, despite all your efforts, nothing seems to go right? Perhaps you've tried to meet every expectation, follow the right path, and push yourself to the limit, yet something inside you still feels incomplete. Carl Jung invites us to look beyond the visible. I have understood that the problem is not in the external world, but in the silent dialogue we maintain with our unconscious. The life you experience is a reflection of what happens within you. When you ignore your emotions or suppress your shadows, that inner disorder manifests in your reality. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In other words, everything you have not faced within yourself will eventually appear in your life as obstacles, unhealthy relationships, or repeated failures. If you find yourself stuck in an unpleasant situation that keeps repeating, the answer lies within you. It is not bad luck. It is your unconscious mind screaming for attention. Every problem is an invitation to look deeper and discover the parts of yourself that you have not yet accepted or understood. These ignored parts of yourself are what Jung called the shadow. The shadow contains everything we don't want to see: our fears, repressed desires, traumas, and the aspects of our personality that we have not recognized. Often, we reject these elements because they do not fit the image we want to project to the world. But ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. On the contrary, the more you suppress them, the more control they have over you. They seep into your relationships, your decisions, and those moments when everything seems to go wrong for no apparent reason. Imagine living in a house with rooms you have never dared to enter. These rooms are your shadow. The longer you keep those doors shut, the more disorder accumulates inside. The energy trapped in these repressed parts of yourself begins to manifest in your life as chaos, failed projects, toxic relationships, and a constant sense of disconnection from your purpose. Jung invites us to open those doors, to explore our inner world without fear, because only by facing our shadow can we find true peace and transformation. Many people feel like nothing goes right in their lives because they have disconnected from their true essence. In their effort to fit into society and meet external expectations, they end up betraying themselves. When you ignore your true desires or settle for a life that doesn't fulfill you, your unconscious mind finds ways to make you aware of it. Perhaps you feel a constant dissatisfaction, even when everything seems fine on the surface. Or maybe you experience inexplicable failures over and over again, as if the universe were conspiring against you. The reality is that it's not the universe punishing you. It's your own inner self crying out to be heard. Until you confront what you truly want and what you fear, you will continue encountering the same obstacles. Jung believed that our unconscious communicates through symbols, intuition, and emotions. Those gut feelings you sometimes ignore are not coincidences. They are signals from your inner self guiding you toward the right path. If something doesn't feel right in a relationship, a job, or a decision, pay attention. It's not weakness or fear. It's your intuition showing you the truth. But when you choose to ignore these signs and follow the safe path, you distance yourself from your true self and perpetuate the cycle of frustration and failure. The world around you may tell you to keep working harder. That success is just around the corner if you put in enough effort. But Jung would argue that the problem is not a lack of effort. It's a disconnection from your authenticity. If you are chasing goals that don't resonate with you, if you are pursuing what others consider valuable instead of what truly makes you happy, you will never feel satisfied. True success is not about external achievements. It's about aligning with who you really are. And that journey begins by making the unconscious conscious, by embracing your shadow instead of running from it. According to Carl Jung, true fulfillment is not found outside of you, but in the integration of your being, in the harmony between your conscious and unconscious mind. One of the most common mistakes we make is projecting our shadows onto others. Jung explained that the qualities we admire or detest in others are merely reflections of aspects of ourselves that we have yet to recognize. If someone's attitude irritates you, or if a particular person seems to bring out the worst in you, ask yourself, what part of me is being reflected in this situation? Instead of blaming others for your problems, Jung invites you to use these experiences as mirrors to better understand yourself and uncover the aspects of your psyche that need healing. This projection occurs because it is far easier to see our shadows in others than to confront them directly. For example, if you constantly feel frustrated by someone you perceive as selfish, it could be a sign that you are repressing your own need to set boundaries and take care of yourself. If you judge others as failures or incompetent, perhaps there is a part of you that fears not measuring up. By observing these projections with honesty, you can begin to release trapped energy and break the patterns that keep you stuck in cycles of dissatisfaction. Another fundamental concept in Jungian psychology is synchronicity, the idea that the events in your life are not mere coincidences, but manifestations of your inner state. When nothing seems to be going right, when everything around you feels chaotic, ask yourself, what is happening within me? External chaos is often a signal that something in your inner world needs attention. Perhaps it is time to let go of a relationship that no longer serves you, to leave a job that drains your soul, or to finally confront a fear you have been avoiding. When you align your life with your truth, synchronicity begins to emerge, and everything starts to fall into place naturally. The problem is that we often resist change. We cling to what is familiar, even if it makes us unhappy, because we fear the unknown. But Jung reminds us that the emptiness we fear is not something to dread. It is a sacred space where the new can take root. For something new to enter your life, you must first release the old. If you hold on tightly to relationships, beliefs, or situations that no longer resonate with you, you are blocking your own evolution. The act of letting go is not a loss. It is a liberation, an opening to what you truly deserve. We often feel stuck because we fail to recognize the signs our unconscious is sending us. The chaos you perceive in your life is not random. It is a message. Carl Jung taught that suffering and obstacles are ways in which the unconscious invites us to grow. When you face constant failures, it is likely that you are struggling against yourself, ignoring the parts of you that need attention and healing. Real transformation begins when you stop blaming the external world and start looking inward with courage and honesty. Your unconscious holds unresolved experiences, repressed emotions, and limiting beliefs that act as invisible barriers. These barriers prevent you from moving forward, no matter how hard you try. For example, if you repeatedly fail in relationships or projects, ask yourself, what pattern am I repeating? Jung would say that until you bring that pattern into consciousness, it will continue to control your life from the shadows. Self-awareness is not about eliminating pain, but understanding it, embracing it, and transforming it into a force for personal evolution. Resistance to change is natural because facing your shadows requires questioning the identity you have constructed, an identity often built on external expectations and values that may no longer serve you. Perhaps you have spent years trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for you, and now your inner self is rebelling. Jung reminds us that the goal of life is not perfection, but authenticity. True fulfillment comes when you allow yourself to be who you really are, with all your light and shadow. The integration of these aspects is what Jung called individuation, the path to a more meaningful life, free from self-deception. If you feel that your life lacks purpose or direction, it may be a sign that you have disconnected from your essence. Jung believed that every human being has a unique purpose, a mission that can only be discovered by listening to the voice of the unconscious. This voice does not shout, it whispers. It speaks through your dreams, your intuitions, and that silent longing for something more. When you ignore these signals and follow a path that does not resonate with you, frustration and failure become inevitable. But when you dare to follow your truth, the universe aligns and opportunities begin to flow. The concept of the shadow does not only refer to the negative aspects of ourselves, but also to the positive qualities we have repressed. Often, our greatest potential lies hidden beneath layers of fear, conditioning, and self-doubt. When you integrate these parts of yourself, when you stop running from who you are, you become whole. And in that wholeness, you find freedom. Carl Jung explained that many people hide their true potential out of fear of judgment, rejection, or failure. Perhaps you have dreams, talents, or desires that you have kept buried because you worry that you are not enough, that you do not measure up. But this self-deception creates a void within you, one that no amount of superficial success can ever truly fill. The real question you should be asking yourself is not, why is everything going wrong for me? But rather, what parts of myself am I repressing, and why? It is entirely possible that you are living a life that does not truly belong to you. Jung taught that the masks we wear to fit into society often disconnect us from our true selves. The more you try to be someone you are not, the more you betray your essence. This disconnection manifests as emptiness, chaos, and repeated failures. The universe is not against you. Rather, your inner self is trying to show you the correct path. Suffering is not a punishment. It is a compass, pointing toward what needs to be transformed within you. The first step to changing your life is to stop running from yourself. The fear of confronting your shadows is what keeps you trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. You may find yourself clinging to relationships, jobs, or routines that no longer bring you happiness simply because you fear that you do not deserve better, or that you may not be able to attain it. But Jung reminds us that change can only occur when you are willing to let go of what no longer serves you. Life constantly sends you signals, and if you continue to ignore them, the chaos will only intensify until you have no choice but to face it. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It reveals the wounds that still need healing in order for you to move forward toward a more authentic life. Integrating your shadows takes time and dedication, but the transformation is profound. When you face your fears and accept your imperfections, you free yourself from the burden you have been carrying. Suddenly, life becomes clearer. Your purpose becomes evident. Inner peace takes root. Toxic relationships lose their hold over you. The right opportunities begin to appear naturally. Most importantly, you reclaim your vital energy. Jung taught that the power to change your life does not lie in external circumstances, but in your ability to truly know, accept, and act from your deepest truth. Have you ever stopped to consider how your thoughts and beliefs shape your reality? Jung described projection as the phenomenon in which we attribute to others what we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves. If everything in your life seems to be going wrong, take a step back and observe. What are you projecting onto the world? Perhaps you see obstacles where there are actually opportunities. Maybe you perceive enemies when, in reality, you are facing mirrors reflecting your own inner struggles. What you see as failure may simply be a lesson waiting to be learned. The world around you is nothing more than a reflection of your inner state. If you want to change your life, you must start by changing your perception and the limiting beliefs that hold you back. This process is not easy. Jung said that the awakening of consciousness is often accompanied by pain because it requires shedding old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. But this pain is not a punishment. It is a purification. It is the moment when you free yourself from outdated conditioning, fears, and attachments, making way for the person you are meant to become. Instead of resisting change, embrace it as an opportunity to grow and align with your true purpose. Every crisis you face is not an end. It is the beginning of something new. When you start living authentically, something extraordinary happens. Synchronicity. Jung defined synchronicity as the meaningful coincidence between your inner state and external events. It is when life seems to conspire in your favor, and everything falls into place effortlessly. But this synchronicity can only manifest when you are truly aligned with yourself. If nothing in your life seems to be working, perhaps you are on the wrong path, swimming against the current instead of listening to the messages your unconscious is sending you. The key is to learn to trust your intuition and release the illusion of control. Resistance to change is one of the greatest barriers, but it is also an opportunity. Jung famously said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." If you want your life to change, stop searching outside of yourself. The real work begins within. Face your shadows. Question your beliefs. Reconnect with your dreams. When you do this inner work, your external reality starts to shift. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable, and the pieces of the puzzle finally fall into place. Chaos and failure are necessary for your evolution. Jung reminds us that life is not a straight path. It is a journey filled with highs and lows, crises and moments of clarity. Every obstacle you encounter is an invitation to grow, to understand yourself more deeply, and to align with your true purpose. If everything in your life seems to be going wrong, ask yourself, what part of me needs attention? What am I avoiding? The answers you seek are not outside of you. They lie within your ability to listen to your inner guidance and take courageous action. The world needs more people who live in authenticity. When you choose to be yourself, without masks, without pretense, you inspire others to do the same. Personal transformation not only liberates you, but also creates a ripple effect, influencing those around you and contributing to a more conscious, balanced world. Jung teaches us that when we heal our wounds and face our shadows, we do not just change our own lives, we help to elevate collective consciousness. True magic happens when you dare to be who you really are. Take a moment to reflect. What part of yourself have you been ignoring? What relationships, beliefs, or fears are you ready to release? Jung said that transformation begins with an act of courage, the courage to look within and embrace everything you find, both the dark and the light. The life you desire is not something to be found outside of you. It is already within you, waiting for you to reconnect with your essence and live in alignment with your truth. When you do this, the universe responds with synchronicities, opportunities, and an unshakable sense of inner peace. This is your moment. If you feel like nothing in your life is working, remember, every challenge is an invitation to grow. Listen to your intuition, face your shadows, and trust the process. Jung taught us that the key to transformation does not lie in the external world. It lies in our ability to truly know ourselves. In the end, everything you need has always been within you. The answers you have been searching for have been there all along, waiting for you to uncover them. The chaos and failures in your life are not punishments. They are wake-up calls. Jung reminds us that every obstacle is an opportunity to evolve and rediscover our essence. If you feel like nothing is going right, do not despair. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been ignoring? What message is my unconscious trying to send me through this situation? The answers are not outside of you. They are within your willingness to look inward and embrace all that you find, the light and the darkness alike. True power does not come from controlling the external world, but from understanding your inner world. When you start living authentically, something powerful happens. The universe responds. What once seemed impossible begins to flow effortlessly. The right people enter your life, and opportunities appear almost as if by magic. But this is not mere coincidence. It is the natural result of aligning your mind, emotions, and actions with your deepest truth. Jung called this synchronicity, a confirmation that you are on the right path. Now, think of your life as a masterpiece. Every thought, every action, and every decision is a brushstroke creating your reality. Are you painting a life that reflects your essence, your purpose, and your truth? If not, this is the perfect moment to start anew. You have the power to transform your reality. But that change begins within you. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." Dare to awaken. Dare to face your shadows, to embrace the parts of yourself that you have been taught to hide, and to build a life that not only inspires you, but also ignites inspiration in others. This is your moment to stop running from your truth and start walking toward it with courage. If this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. There are countless people searching for answers, struggling with the same chaos and the same questions that you have faced. Share this message, because together we can bring this transformative knowledge to more people. Think about the impact you could have. Imagine helping someone reconnect with their purpose, guiding them to shift their perspective, and watching them step into a more authentic and empowered life. All because you decided to share something meaningful. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this message spoke to your heart? What step are you willing to take today to start living from your true self? Your experience, your thoughts, and your journey can serve as a beacon for others. It might be the spark that ignites change, not just within you, but in those who cross your path. True transformation begins with a single action, and your words could be the encouragement someone else needs to take their first step. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future messages like this one. Every time you leave a comment, hit like, or share this content, you're not just supporting this channel, you're helping to create a community of growth and transformation. Life is full of possibilities, and change starts with you. Are you ready to take the first step? Share, comment, and become part of this movement dedicated to truth, self-discovery, and fulfillment. Together, we can inspire the world to awaken its true potential. Have you ever loved someone who felt perfectly aligned with your soul, yet completely misaligned with your life? Have you ever experienced a connection so intense, so undeniable, that it felt as though chance had been momentarily suspended, like the universe itself leaned in and whispered to you, "It's him," only to then feel that same universe rip that person from your hands, as if reminding you that not everything meant for your growth is meant to stay? What if the pain that emerges from such an encounter is not a mistake? What if it's not a cruel twist of fate, but a sacred initiation, an invisible threshold into a deeper awareness of yourself? Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life." and you will call it fate. This kind of heartbreak may be the universe's way of forcing your unconscious into the light. At some point in our lives, each of us encounters someone who feels like they were sent by something greater. Someone who doesn't just stir emotions, but awakens parts of us we forgot existed. Forgotten dreams, long-buried wounds, hidden fears, and a tenderness we thought had disappeared forever. Their presence feels like a key, unlocking doors within us we didn't even know were closed. And yet, they don't stay. They can't stay. And what remains is an emptiness, an ache that is not hollow, but strangely full of meaning, full of echoes, full of questions that don't have immediate answers. This video is for those who have experienced that kind of pain, the kind that doesn't quite have a name, but carries depth. It's for those who have loved silently, who have looked at someone and thought, why was I given this if it was never meant to be mine? Together, we're going to explore what Carl Jung called synchronicity, and why some people don't enter our lives to stay, but to reveal who we truly are beneath everything we pretend to be. Prepare yourself, because this might hurt, but it will also free you. It often begins with something simple: a glance, a fleeting conversation, a soft brush of hands, and suddenly the whole world seems to pause. Everything slows down. The noise of daily life fades into the background, and what remains is this inexplicable stillness, as if time itself is holding its breath, honoring something sacred that's just begun. You can't explain it. It's not just attraction, and it's not mere compatibility. It's a deep, soul-level recognition, as if that person has always existed inside you, even before they appeared in front of you. It feels ancient, familiar, like something inside you whispers, "There you are." And then comes the paradox. The more real this connection feels, the more impossible it becomes. There are misaligned timelines, clashing values, existing commitments, long distances, or simply circumstances too complex to overcome. And yet, the bond remains, stubborn, silent, undeniable. This is one of the most painful experiences a human being can endure, to feel at home in someone and know you can't stay. But Jung offers us a lens to see beyond the pain. He wasn't just talking about romantic soulmates. He spoke of living symbols, of moments and people that don't arrive through logic or planning, but through the language of the soul. They are not random. They are not explainable through conventional reasoning. These moments are what he called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that serve a deeper purpose. It's the moment your inner world collides symbolically with the outer world. It's not rational, it's archetypal. And sometimes that symbolic message comes in the form of a person. Maybe that person came into your life to remind you that you can still feel, that beneath all the numbness and cynicism, your heart is still capable of beating with raw intensity. Or maybe they came to reawaken a part of you that was lost. Your vulnerability, your courage, your hunger for something real. Maybe they didn't come to heal you, but to break you open, surgically, deliberately, so you could finally see what's been buried. Sometimes the universe doesn't send you an angel. It sends you a mirror. And facing that mirror can be more painful than any physical separation, because what you see, reflected back at you, is yourself, raw, fragmented, incomplete. A self starving for something that was awakened in their presence, but never meant to be fulfilled by them. Many people run from this kind of encounter. They label it as infatuation, delusion, emotional dependence. But deep down, they know. Everyone who has felt it knows. There is a distinct kind of pain that only truth can create. A pain that doesn't just ache, it illuminates. Some people go their entire lives never feeling something like this, never having their soul exposed by the gaze of another who sees beyond the mask and into the essence. That's why, when it does happen, even for a brief moment, it becomes unforgettable. Even if it was fleeting, even if it was impossible, and the pain that follows, the absence that screams, is not just a longing for the other. It's a longing for yourself, for who you were when you were with them, for the version of you that was more alive, more awake, more transparent. Their absence is, in many ways, the absence of that connection to you. An impossible love, in this context, is not a mistake to be erased. It is a rite of passage. It pulls you out of your numbness and throws you back into the story of your soul. It says, wake up, look at yourself, see what you forgot. And yes, it hurts. It hurts because it's real. But every real wound carries a truth, and every truth, when faced, has the power to transform. Have you ever felt that something was already written? That the meeting wasn't just random, but part of some silent conspiracy between time, space, and the unseen forces that guide our lives? Maybe you crossed paths in the most unlikely of circumstances, at the worst possible time, under the strangest conditions. And yet, something inside you whispered, this is not a coincidence. Carl Jung would call this synchronicity, a profound and often misunderstood concept that defies linear logic and embraces mystery. It's when external events align meaningfully with internal states, without any causal connection. These are like signals from the unconscious, trying to express themselves through the material world. Jung saw synchronicity as a bridge between the inner and outer worlds, as if the universe, using living symbols, gave form to what already pulses deep within the soul. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this: these manifestations don't arrive to validate our desires, but rather to expose our contradictions. Do you think you found the right person? Maybe. But what if the universe didn't bring you someone to stay? What if it brought you someone to awaken you? What if that magical encounter was not a promise of forever, but a symbolic response to your inner state? Synchronicities are like dreams that come to life outside of us. They are encrypted messages from the soul. Ask yourself, why do certain connections shake you so deeply? Why do you keep thinking about someone months, even years later? Why does that bond haunt you in silence? The answer isn't just in the other person. It's in what they stirred within you. Maybe you were already ready for change, but didn't know it. Maybe you were emotionally stuck, trapped in repeating patterns, living on autopilot. And so the universe throws a thunderbolt disguised as a familiar face, someone who makes you feel everything again: fear, desire, vulnerability, hope, shame, love. And even if that person leaves, their role is fulfilled: to rupture the bubble. It's tempting to romanticize that as fate. The old tale of soulmates separated by circumstances has a mythic charm, but Jung invites us beyond romance. He suggests these synchronicities don't come to fulfill our fantasies. They arrive to confront us with what's fragmented inside, as if the universe is saying, "Are you ready to grow? Then take this, someone who will unbalance you, who will reflect what you're truly seeking, who will tear your emotional armor apart with just a glance." And this isn't poetic. It's cruel. It's beautiful. It's overwhelming. Because synchronicity isn't about beauty. It's about truth. And truth, more often than not, is terrifying. How many times have you mistaken that experience for lack? How many times have you tried to control, force, make it work? How often did you ask yourself whether you should insist? But the question was never about making it work. The real question was, what is this trying to show you? Maybe that person was the living embodiment of your need for approval, or your fear of abandonment, or your illusion of control, or even your hunger for transcendence. In synchronicity, the person stops being just a person. They become a symbol, an archetype, a living message. And like any symbol, it doesn't follow the logic of time. They can leave and still leave behind a scar full of meaning. That's why you still think of them. Because they became a turning point in your personal story. They're tied to the moment when your soul moved, even if your body stayed still. Maybe deep down, it was never about that person. It was always about you. And that's where the real dilemma begins. Are you willing to stop looking for answers outside and start listening to what that encounter stirred within you? That is the call of synchronicity. It doesn't offer comfort, it offers mirrors. And few of us have the courage to look. Some pains cut deep, not because of absence, but because of what they reveal. It's not just that the person left. It's that they took with them the image you had projected onto them, the hope, the imagined future, the meaning you had created. That's where pain becomes unbearable, when you're not mourning the person, but what you saw of yourself through them. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the dark side of the psyche, where everything we deny, hide, or reject lives. And few things reveal that shadow like a relationship that shakes you to your core. You feel irrational jealousy, a childlike fear of being abandoned, an obsession bordering on madness. You know it's overblown, but you can't stop it. You feel ashamed for feeling so much. But Jung would say, this isn't weakness. It's the unconscious knocking on your door. That person you can't have isn't just an absence. They're a catalyst. They tear off masks you didn't even know you were wearing. They expose what was hiding behind your self-sufficiency, behind the emotional maturity you worked so hard to build. And what shows up is frightening. Ancient wounds, poorly healed traumas, unresolved desires, parts of yourself frozen in time. The most important encounters are planned by the soul long before the bodies ever meet. These encounters don't break us. They break us open. And that makes all the difference. Imagine your identity as a shell built over years, strong, protective, packed with strategies to avoid feeling too much. Then someone arrives and, without saying a word, wants to see who you are inside. And they pierce through you. Not out of malice, but because unconsciously you were already ready to be pierced. These kinds of relationships, especially the impossible ones, act like emotional X-rays. They reveal where you're still bleeding, where you're still waiting to be chosen, where you still believe you must be perfect to be loved. And the most painful part, the person who seemed to understand you so deeply often cannot stay, because they too are burdened by their own shadow. Sometimes it's the timing. Sometimes it's because their role was never to build a home, but to spark a fire. And that fills you with rage, indignation, a deep sense of injustice, as if the universe was playing games with you. But what if it's not a game? What if it's a calling? The shadow revealed is not punishment. It's a gateway to self-knowledge. You can only heal what you're able to see. And it is often the impossible love that forces you to look. Yes, that person showed you love, but they also revealed your emotional dependency, your fantasy of salvation, your tendency to idealize anyone who offers a glimmer of light. You're not broken for feeling. You're alive, standing before a mirror that doesn't lie. The real question isn't why it hurts so much. The real question is, what is this wound asking you to transform? Because the shadow doesn't vanish through effort. It integrates through awareness. And that awareness often emerges from what burns. There comes a moment, usually a solitary one, when the pain of losing the other gives way to the pain of losing yourself. You stop asking, why did they leave? And begin asking, what part of me did I lose while trying to keep them here? That is the beginning of individuation. According to Carl Jung, this is not a pretty process. It's not sudden enlightenment. It's more like a gradual demolition, the slow dismantling of the person you thought you were, so that the person you truly are can emerge. Individuation is the integration of all the parts you ignored in order to survive. Your fears, your shame, your contradictions. It's accepting that you can love and hate at the same time, want to stay and want to run, need and deny. It's admitting that the pain of losing someone might be less terrifying than being alone with your own truth. What we refuse to face within ourselves will return to us as fate. Carl Jung taught that the person who emotionally shook you did more than leave. They offered you a silent invitation. Will you keep running away, or will you finally face yourself? They touched exactly where it hurt, because you needed to feel. You needed to stop rationalizing what was really a soul's cry for help. And the question that arises from that pain is brutal. Do I love the other, or do I love the version of myself I see when I'm with them? It's hard to admit, but many times we love from lack. The other's absence becomes the stage on which we project everything we think would complete us. Safety, unconditional love, belonging. But those feelings, however deep, aren't the destination. They are the path. They didn't come to bind you to someone else. They came to lead you back to yourself. The pain is the calling. The impossible love is the initiation. And the path is the inner desert you've been avoiding. You begin to see it was never about staying with them. It was about staying with yourself after them. And what does that mean? It means rescuing parts of yourself that had been abandoned long before that encounter. It means realizing that you weren't rejected. You were reflected. The other merely touched what was already cracked. In the process of individuation, you stop playing the protagonist of the romantic tragedy and become the observer of your own psyche. You start to see how you repeat patterns, how you fuel stories of emotional scarcity, how you seek in others what can only be found within. And something both magical and painful happens. You stop asking others to save you, because you begin to understand that you're already enough, even in your fragmentation, even in your chaos. That kind of liberation doesn't arrive with euphoria. It comes with mourning. It's the mourning of the version of you that loved desperately, that idealized with hunger, that needed to be chosen to feel worthy. But after mourning comes clarity, and with it, a new kind of silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of acceptance. You look back and realize it was never about them. It was about who you were for a brief moment at their side, and who you're now willing to become without them. Before we move on, there's one last message, and perhaps it's the most important of all. Have you ever felt stuck, even when you're trying to change? Have you noticed that no matter how many books you read, how many videos you watch, how much effort you put in, something invisible keeps pulling you back into the same patterns? You need to know this isn't coincidence. It has a reason. Recently, researchers and thinkers have rediscovered a model of inner transformation that has been used for centuries by visionaries, philosophers, and strategists who altered the course of history. A quiet, yet incredibly powerful method, one that merges science, psychology, and ancestral wisdom, yet remains known to only a few. Carl Jung didn't just speak of the unconscious, he lived inside it, exploring the mechanisms that shape our lives from the shadows. Those who have applied this method often describe it as if something deep within suddenly unlocked. Clarity, discipline, a stronger sense of self. As if, for the first time, they were no longer at the mercy of their own mind, but in command of it. There comes a moment when you stop waiting for them to return, not because you've forgotten, but because you finally understood. They didn't come to stay. They came to break you open. They arrived like comets, brief, intense, devastating. They came like wind, sweeping through the rooms of your soul, removing everything that was false, shallow, and built from fear. You didn't lose that person. You found yourself through them. It's painful to accept. The human heart clings, wants to hold on, wants to control. But some presences are too vast to fit within the frame of the ordinary. They exist to shake your inner tectonic plates, to bring down walls, to show you who you are when no one is watching. Your mind will try to explain it. What if I'd said this? What if life had been more fair? But deep inside, you know it. That person came to open something, not to remain. The pain of their departure is often the stamp of something profound having taken place, because the kind of love that transforms is rarely comfortable. It is raw. It is naked. It exposes your hunger to be seen, your fear of rejection, your courage to feel even knowing it might vanish. These souls are not mistakes. They are catalysts. They are living questions. You are not broken because they left. You are open. And in the space they once occupied, something new has emerged. You with more clarity, with more integrity, with a deeper willingness to face your shadows without needing someone else to light them for you. What remains after all this is a different silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of understanding. You no longer need the other to stay, because what they gave you, perhaps unknowingly, was a key to an inner door, one that leads you home, to yourself. You realize the universe didn't make a mistake. It wasn't punishment. It was a calling. And as much as it hurts, it was sacred. They didn't come to complete your story. They came to interrupt it, where it had become a lie. They came to remove the mask you didn't even know you were wearing. They came to shatter the spell of numbness and return you to motion. Now you're alone, but you've never been more awake. So, no, it wasn't a mistake. That person who arrived like a hurricane and vanished into eternal silence didn't come to destroy your life. They came to implode what no longer made sense. It wasn't destiny, it was a calling. The sharp hand of reality tearing through your illusions. And now that everything has been said, you understand. The real encounter wasn't with them. It was with yourself, with your vulnerabilities, with the emptiness you've spent years trying to avoid, with the depth of your being. Now you see, loving someone who couldn't stay was paradoxically the most brutal and honest way of finally finding yourself. You're no longer stuck in the question, why did it end? Now, you carry with you a far more powerful one. What began inside me the moment it ended outside? I need to share something personal. A few years ago, I lived exactly this. I met someone who seemed to step out of an ancient dream. It felt like everything I had searched for was right there, before my eyes. But it didn't last. and it broke me. I thought I'd never feel something like that again. I spent sleepless nights wondering why the universe had been so cruel. Why give me something so beautiful, only to rip it away? It was only with time, and with Jung, that I began to understand. I wasn't being punished. I was being awakened. That impossible love was the spark for my own reconstruction. It forced me to look at parts of myself I had ignored. It brought me to write this very script, with tears in my eyes and a full heart. Not because someone stood beside me, but because I had found myself on the other side of pain. If you're going through this too, I see you. And trust me, this isn't your end. It's the beginning of something profound. Now, if you made it this far and didn't cry or spiral into an existential crisis, I suspect you might be a robot, a monk, or maybe both. But if this video felt like one of those mirrors, not the kind that flatter, but the kind that reveal, then leave a comment below. Carl Jung believed that the soul speaks through symbols and reflection. If this reached you, it means your psyche is listening. I found myself in the silence. I want to read your words. I want to know who had the courage to be stripped bare by the invisible. And if you still haven't subscribed to this channel, seriously, what are you doing with your life? If the universe led you here, maybe it's the self nudging you to awaken. Click that bell, dear soul. And now, those 2 videos appearing on your screen. Well, one of them might completely change the way you understand your choices. The other might show you that you never really knew what love meant. But only maybe.